Welcome to Sophia English channel. Today we are going to see about communication skill. We are going to see about communication skill. What does mean by communication skill? As we all know, it is used to communicate. The skills when we are using the skill we are using when we communicate with others. So what is communication? Communication is a learned skill. However, while most people are born with the physical ability to talk, not all can communicate well unless they make special efforts to develop and refine this skill further. Very often, we take the ease with which we communicate with each other for granted, so much so that we sometimes forget how complex the communication process actually is. So, these are the things. So, communication is a learned skill. We must learn it, communication. So, the communication is the very important one. While we are communicating to others, we must know or we must improve our skill. We must improve our skill. So, it is, if we missed to communicate well, sure, it will end in a conflict manner. In the sense, it will end in a confusion, or it will end in a whether the speaker or whether the listener can understand what they communicate. So the communication skill is a very important. So all the people can able to communicate, but some of them are not well when they communicate unless they make a special effort to develop. So it's a very important one. Next, elements in communication. Have you ever wondered why some people can communicate so well while others fail to get their message across? What are the elements that must be present in the communication process before it can be successful and effective? Well, communication has been defined as the act of giving, receiving, or exchanging information, ideas and opinions so that the message 100% is completely understood by both parties. Look at the figure 1 below. See the illustration which comes the next. Okay. The illustration shows clearly that in a communication process, there must be a sender who speaks or sends a message, and a receiver who listens or receives the message. So here we have a sender as well as one who speaks, as well as we have a receiver, one who receiving the message. So it's a very important. It is a when we say it is a communication, it has been defined as the act of giving and receiving. So here we can see the sender and then message and receiver. So understanding and interpreting the feedback, and understanding and interpreting the message, and it is a very important, so that the sender as well as the receiver must be clear about what they are speaking and must be clear about what they received. As we saw the element, it goes. The sender sends a message with a certain intention in mind. The receiver of the message tries to understand and interpret the message sent. He then gives feedback to the original sender, who in turn interprets the feedback. This process, repeated continuously, constitutes communication. So clearly, there are several major elements in the communication process. For example, a sender, message, channel, and then receiver, feedback, and context. There is both a speaker's intention to convey a message and a listener's reception of what has been said. Thus, listening skills are just as important as speaking skill in order for communication to be effective. So, while we listen only, we can give a response. So, listening as well as speaking skills is a very important in the communication process. It is the first and foremost important, listening and then speaking. After listening the what the speakers has given, then only we can speak. So first listening is important, and next we can able to speak. So speaking skill is come after the listening skill. And next, this means that if you want to get your message across accurately, you need to consider these three things. So these are the very, very important. That is the message. First and foremost is the message, the audience or receiver, and how the message is likely to be received. And a message is only considered successfully communicated when both the sender and the receiver perceives and understand it in the same way. If this does not happen, then there may be a breakdown in communication, which may ultimately stand in the way of you realizing your goals, either personally or professionally. So it's a very, very important when we communicate with others. When we start to communicate, we must see these elements to communicate in effective manner. As I mentioned earlier, effective communication is a two-way process, but there are a number of factors which may disrupt this process and affect the overall interpretation and understanding of what was communicated. Myriad problems can pop up at different stages of the communication process. This can be related to any of the elements involved: the sender, message, channel, receiver, feedback, and context. So it is therefore important to understand some of the factors that affect communication so that you can try to get your message across with minimal misunderstanding and confusion. And here we have some possible problems, areas that may turn out to be a barriers to effective communication. First is the status and role. The sender and receiver of a message may be of equal status within a hierarchy. Example, manager in an organization, or they may be at a different level. Example, manager, employee, lecturer, student, business owner, client. This difference in status sometimes affect the effectiveness of the communication process. And it is a very, very important, the status as well as a role while we communicate. So first is the first barriers of effective communication. And then next, cultural difference and choice of communication channels. Cultural difference. There are cultural differences both within or outside the organization. For example, here interdepartmental dealings and communication with outside organization or ethnic minorities may impede the communication process. So the important one is the cultural differences. So we can see the cultural differences also. And the choice of communication channels. So we must be thorough with what we are going to communicate, about what. So before you choose your communication channel, you should ask yourself whether the channel is appropriate for a particular purpose or the person and receiver you have in mind. Sending message via inappropriate channels can send out wrong signals, and it may end up creating confusion. So it may end up with creating confusion. And the next one, length of communication and use of language. So we always must have in mind the length of communication. The length of communication also affects the communication process. You need to be sure that it serves the purpose and inappropriate for the receivers. Is the message too long or too brief? So we must be careful with that. And then use of language. Poor choice of words or weak sentence structure also hampers communication. The same goes for inappropriate punctuation. The two sentences below illustrate clearly how different placement of punctuation can change the entire meaning of a sentence. See, here we have woman without her man is nothing. Woman without her man is nothing. So because of the punctuation, it differs. So it's a very, very important how we are using the language. Next, disabilities. Disabilities such as impaired sight, dyslexia and poor mental health can also be barriers to good communication and should be taken into consideration when evaluating the effectiveness of the communication process. You may need to use hearing aids, sign language, magnifying systems and symbol to alleviate problems caused by disabilities. So it is also one of the barriers. And known or unknown receivers. Whether the receiver is a known or unknown to you also plays a major role in determining the effectiveness of your communication. And known receiver may be better able to understand your message despite having insufficient information, as both of you probably have common experience and shared stigmata. And unknown receiver, on the other hand, may require more understandable words. So it should be more. And the next one, individual perception, attitudes, personalities. Sometimes the method of communication needs to take into consideration the receiver's personality, traits, age and preferred style. The elderly and the children, for example, have different communication needs and preference. When compared to young adults, is the receiver of your message a visual, auditory or kinesthetic sort of person? How do you think they will react to your message? Can you adapt your communication style to suit other days? Yeah, next, atmosphere, noise and distraction. Our surroundings can sometimes pose as a barriers to effective communication. A noisy place usually put a strain on oral communication, as both the sender and receiver need to put extra effort to get the message across and ensure that it is understood clearly and correctly. And then clarity of message is very, very important. You must be clear when you are saying the message. Is the message conveyed in a clear or ambiguous manner? So you must have a question. You must explain the message clearly. Next, lack of feedback. Feedback is important as it enables confirmation of understanding to be made by both parties. The lack of feedback can sometimes create problems as it can lead to uncertainty and confusion. So the feedback is also very, very important when we are communicating. Without giving any feedback, we can't pass for the next. Only by giving a response, only by the feedback only, we can able to react or we can able to respond the message. Clarity is a very, very important, and the feedback is also very, very important. And these are the barriers when we see to have a effective communication. Next, the most appropriate channel of communication. So these are the channel you must be take. When choosing the most appropriate channel of communication, you should heed the following. Consider all aspects of communication process. Think carefully about possible barriers. Evaluate the complexities of the message and decide how it might be best conveyed. Ask yourself these questions. For example, why? Characteristics of the receiver. Why? Purpose of the communication. Content of the message. What content of the message you are going to give? How? Whether oral, written or a visual or a combination of all three. And where? The location is also very, very important. The location of the meeting. And where? When? timing, time limit, expected response time. So these are the important channel you must choose to have an effective communication. And the next what we have here is a very important one, that is where I refer to give you this notes. If you like this video, kindly subscribe my channel and give me a comment, so that if you support me, I can give a more and more clearance about the notes. If you want anything to explain or to say, you can just comment me in the comment box. I will take a risk and I will try to explain what you are asking. And if you like this video, kindly click the bell icon as well as a subscribe button and give me a like. It will be a great support to me. And thank you. Kindly subscribe my channel and click the bell icon to have a new notification. And if you like this video, kindly click the like button. Thank you.